Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for the Wot Supp podcast. With your host, Stu OG Industry Shannon, and Will Warren Davey, new school formulator extraordinaire. We're talking all things supplements with insiders, athletes, experts, and more. So sit back, relax, and prepare to find out what's up.
Welcome, ladies and gents, to another episode of the Wot Supp podcast. We have a very special guest here with us today, and he is a bodybuilder. He is a supplement formulator. He's a brand owner. He's also a world-renowned artist. And if you don't already know who I'm talking about, it is, of course, Mark Meataxe Taylor. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's my first podcast ever, so it's kind of a little bit daunting, but we'll get through it.
That's it. Look, it's like I said before, you know, it's not too much stress. We're pretty easygoing, and you know, we just have fun with these things anyway. So I think it's this one should be interesting for us, and I'm sure you're in the same boat. Will, people don't know too much about you, Mark, other than the fact that I think that you would have to be living under a rock to have not seen one of your murals around the place there, Mark.
Yeah. Since kind of the whole bodybuilding career, I took a big step back. Kind of delved right into the art culture, and art's a lot more emotional and spiritual. So it's really, you kind of got to be really stuck in your own thoughts. And of course, I got a pretty big family, so four little boys kind of takes up a lot of time, you know.
Yeah. Were you like, obviously, like, you know, I know that you're a bodybuilder, and some people may or may not know that. And just in case anyone's wondering, if you're not aware of who Mark is and what the artworks are that I'm talking about, you will have all seen in some of the most famous gyms in the world. There's stacks of them around Melbourne, but his works are all over the world. They're on buildings, they're everywhere. They're these kind of black and white murals that he does, and generally speaking, his subject matter is bodybuilders, but he's done all sorts of different pieces. So if you jump on Google image search and you just type in, you know, what is it, clap Meataxe design, you'll see,
even just Instagram the Meataxe.
Just Instagram the Meataxe, and you'll see some of the artworks that I'm talking about. But you'll instantly recognize them as soon as you see them. Now, Mark, were you an artist before you started doing these huge murals, or did you just kind of pick up a spray can and start painting and something amazing came out? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, just woke up one morning and found a spray can and just did a 10-foot story picture of Roddy Coleman.
Just winging it, mate. That's a common theme we have in a lot of our podcasts. We find most business owners.
Just like, hang on, what's going on? It was like an episode of The Twilight Zone. No. Look, I couldn't, in high school, I couldn't draw at all. I was horrible. And I was obviously a graffiti artist for a long time. And I wasn't a very good graffiti artist. I was horrible. A lot of people don't realize that the graffiti world and universal, the whole earth, there's a massive underground graffiti culture. Like, it's huge. And there's massive hierarchies, like there's kings and there's, you know, people that you look up to, like the idols. So as a young kid, you look up to these guys like they're gods. I wanted to be that. So I pushed it and basically didn't sleep and just painted every single night out illegally. Am I allowed to say illegally? It was a long time ago.
You can say whatever you want on here. Don't worry about it. If they want to come chase us down, I'm sure Will's got some money aside in the legal budget.
The legal budget, I like that.
Yeah, it was a fun life. You get to be one with your thoughts, and I think that's also because a lot of the time now I paint at night. I think that's where it comes from. At night, I'd be on like these Collingwood rooftops, and when I say rooftop, I mean where the train line is. When you drive through Collingwood, there's all the backs of the factories facing the train line. So there's all like rooftops, and we used to paint murals on rooftops. And as my artwork got better and better and better, obviously the graffiti lettering kind of started evolving into more artworks.
Yeah.
So then high school finished, and oddly enough, I wanted to do animation because it just looked like fun. Although I think South Park had kind of just got really popular at the time. I'm like, I want to do that shit, you know? But I wasn't good enough to get into art school. I was horrible. So I drew nonstop. Like I basically did not sleep for years. I eventually got pushed and kind of scammed my way into part-time TAFE, and that got me into full-time TAFE. And then 3 years later, I was good enough to get a spot at RMIT University in fine art. And then I basically, even just to keep up with those guys, I just didn't sleep. And then within a year or two, I was kind of just excelling basically. So instead of doing like a figure drawing is when you draw a nude model, which is the anxiety behind drawing an actual model in front of you it's really, really difficult. So I'd be doing like 3-4 nude models a week. And then I'd actually get all my friends to pose for me and stuff like that.
Yeah, wow. How does that conversation go when you walk up to a friend and you're like, so what do you think about posing nude for me?
Yeah. It's kind of with your friends. You just get them really drunk, man.
And then stand still for 12 hours.
Yeah. Don't move.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you draw the vomit as well. So I finished university, RMIT, got my degree in fine art. And that was kind of around the time where street art hadn't really happened in Melbourne yet. It was more still a graffiti. So we couldn't get legal walls. We'd drive around Brunswick, Collingwood, all those places to try and get permission to paint walls, and no one would let us paint their walls. So it's a massive contrast to what it is now. And I was doing really large, I'd eventually find walls. We wouldn't be paid at all. I'd find walls and I'd do massive, huge scale portraits and stuff like that. I was always trying to push the limits, trying to evolve. And you don't really know, but you're doing it for the love of it because you just love it so much. And it's just a bunch of us having fun. So we did that. And then a couple of years later, that's when bodybuilding hit me pretty hard. I was always training. Even painting legally, I was still training. I remember painting 3 o'clock in the morning, having protein bars stuck in the back pockets, you know what I mean? And that in comparison, all of other people I was painting with, most of them are dead now, but they were all pretty heavily on drugs and stuff like that. So I was the odd one out. Because I'm sipping on protein shakes, trying to paint the side of this train and stuff like that, a long time ago. I should say hypothetically painting a train. Asking for a mate. And that bodybuilding hit, and it hit pretty hard. And eventually, what happened? I ended up getting a gig for the AST Sports Science. Actually, no. I was working for GNC back then. GNC was, it only just had one store, and this is right at the beginning when GNC didn't really have bodybuilders or anything like that. It hadn't really been heard of in Melbourne or even Australia that much. So then you learn the ropes, and all the sales techniques that GNC used to use, that are still used to this day. So you learn the ropes, and you start studying naturopathy, and you start studying all that sort of stuff. So you find out, and even from, you remember Bill Phillips's book, that supplement super guide or whatever it was? Studying that and knowing that back to front, the customers coming in, you seem like a guru because you know everything. So then from that, you just get this thirst for knowledge, and you just start studying, and you meet naturopaths, and it's like, I want to do that. And then your knowledge grows, and then your customer base grows. And then you slowly discover that helping people, that's where the secret is. That's what makes you feel so special. The money side, it's not where it is. It's when people come back and they're telling you this happened because of what you told me. It's like, okay, that's what I'm chasing. That's my drug.
Well, that's probably an interesting point that you make there, Mark, is that you're getting commissioned to do some huge artworks and doing quite well off it by all accounts. And then you go out and you start your own supplement brand, which is, obviously, as far as money is concerned, there's no necessity there for you to do that, right? You just decided that you wanted to create Axe laboratories and started doing it. Where did that come from? Why did you feel you wanted to do a supplement brand?
Well, I guess it's kind of 30 years in the making. So it was always in the back of your head, but it was just always on the sidelines. So the bodybuilding took me away from the art for like about 10 years. And then the art obviously took me back pretty quickly. And then it started to become real. But obviously, as you know, like you need a bit of a budget to do that sort of thing. So a few years ago, I started looking into it pretty heavily. And obviously, where you are in bodybuilding, you start to make really serious contacts with a lot of the laboratories, the supplement laboratories and stuff like that. So you start looking into it. And originally, I didn't really know what to release. The sleep supplement was always there, but it still wasn't proper. And obviously, pre-workouts were popular at the time. But making up pre-workouts, even ones that were so advanced that they would cost a couple of $100 to sell on the market. You give it to a few people at the gym and their response is, oh, we didn't really get that buzz. So you have to make that decision right there. Are you doing this because you want to make that money and get that quick buzz? Or are these people not your customers and you want to go for helping people? So then it was like, these aren't my people. I don't want to go for that pre-workout. I don't want to do that thing. So that's when the sleep formula started doing it. So then fast forward 18 months and it was grinding. And for 18 months, I'm going back and forth with this lab and I'm trying to perfect it. And it was getting pretty, like, it was dragging out a long time. And Renee's buzzing, going, come on, man, just release it, just release it, just release it. And I'm like, no, it's got to be perfect. I want this to go further. I want this to help as many people as possible. And again, I'm painting at night at the time, so I want to sleep during the day. So I've only got 6 hours to sleep when the kids are at school. I want that REM. So it has to make the REM go up. So everyone I'm testing on, we got the sleep trackers. We need the REM to go up. We need it to be certain levels before even thinking about releasing it. And it's got to be better than anyone that's ever released before.
Yep. Well, I'm getting a bit of a click coming through on your microphone there. Are you getting a click coming through there? Oh, he's got a pen.
He's got a pen.
He's got a pen.
I think it's an anxiety thing. I'll put it down.
No, that's all right. But I was going to ask you, so, your supplement, the one you first launched, and I don't know if you've had a chance to actually use it well. It's called Dream.
Yeah, no, certainly. When it first came to the market, I liked the packaging was interesting, and the fact that it came out on quite a big scale to start with. Nutrition Warehouse was a pretty big platform to, start to launch a startup, mate. Like that's that was quite an accomplishment in itself, and that's what I think drew a lot of attention in the industry. We're like, oh wow, this has come out of nowhere. There's been a sleep formula dropped, and it's in the biggest retailer in the country with a national rollout. We're like, wow, this is really cool. I want to look into this. So, and when I heard some of them talking about it with a backstory, and you're saying, like you said, it's made to it's made for those who don't have 8 hours to sleep, and it's made to optimize the small amount of time you do have. It sort of perked my interest a lot. So I was really excited to sort of pick your brain on some of the back end and how you formulated to, because it's got a lot of compounds that you don't see very often at all, in that product. So it's a really unique formulation with a really unique twist on it, mate.
I think that's a really interesting point too, Will, is that, Mark, you came out in a time of full disclosure panels with a proprietary blend. And, a lot of people just went, is he trying to hide something, until they tried the formula. And that was how you got me. That's how you got me, right? So, so for people who don't know, I was not going to stock Dream. I was not going to stock it. All right. Because it was dearer than
about it too.
Yeah. It was dearer than what else I was stocking. And the margins weren't going to be the same as what I was stocking. And I just pretty much said no until Mark sent me a sample of it. And, like any good dealer of any compound, got me hooked on the samples. And then I was like, God damn it, that's the best sleep of my life. I've got to stock this stuff now.
I think sleep supplements are such a big space, particularly business owners and people like yourself burning candles at both ends, Mark, where you see, I think once people try, once you've had an amazing night's sleep, it becomes almost infectious. So you never want, you don't want to risk having a bad sleep almost. Once you've felt good sleep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nothing compares. You feel like, you'll have what you thought was a good one before, and it'll just be, it feels like you're just a walking zombie comparatively. Like it's life changing when you give someone the quality of sleep back.
I mean, you know it, but it's pretty daunting releasing it, because in the back of your head, it's like, what if it doesn't work? What if this doesn't do what I'm planning to do? And I think it was about 3 weeks into it, the feedback was coming in, so it was positive, but you're still doubting yourself. So Renee and I got a phone call from someone in hospital, terminally ill, and they were crying their eyes out. But crying with happiness. And the fact that they'd been able to sleep, and until that point had almost given up on ever sleeping again. So they were crying, which in turn made Renee and I cry. So after that phone call, we kind of both looked at each other and we said, if we never make $1 from this, we don't care. Because helping this person was what the whole thing was about. And that was the plan from the original start, from all the way through, to not sell out and not go for that quick money in and out, which a lot of the other companies do. But we really, really, truly want to help people. And that's gone all the way through, from people at hospitals to, to the average person that just wants better REM. And they wake up and they're feeling amazing. Then now I sound like a salesman, but it's like, and the mum that's only getting 3 or 4 hours sleep, but now she's getting 3 or 4 hours of broken sleep, but it's high REM sleep. So she's still able to wake up the next morning refreshed and ready to go. So that was, yeah.
Yeah, it's something I've noticed with you, Mark, that probably differs from a lot of the people in the industry. And I know that Will and I are very cautious of this as well, because we have we've built and developed this platform now, and we've done it, in such a way that we're we're not a commercial body. We don't like to be biased. We don't like to kind of shamelessly promote our own brands where we can help it. But it seems like you're a little bit the same when you don't need to be. Like, I've noticed that you on the forums, or I guess would call them on the Facebook groups and stuff that now, you'll be in a conversation about something and someone will say to you, "Oh, Mark, what do you recommend for sleep?" And you won't go out there and say it. You make a very conscious effort to say, "Look, I'll PM you, or message me and I'll talk to you about it." You make a conscious effort kind of not to over promote the brand. Is that something that is a strategy of yours, or is it just who you are, or why have you decided to kind of take that approach?
Not so much a strategy as much as I really appreciate that one-on-one customer service. I don't want it to come across like I'm just some salesman online. I'd rather make a connection with you like we're friends and explain to you. And then as a result, when you take it, you're going to message me straight away. Particularly if you don't like it, you're going to tell me. But yeah, if you love it, you're going to tell me, and then we can work back and forth and we can build up that rapport for the next few years. You know what I mean? And again, you don't, people, if you just chuck it up, this link on Facebook, this, people realize they're not going to even look at it. You know what I mean? It's much more on a personal level. And it goes back to those GNC days where you pretty much are just a salesperson and you are pretty much just going for that commission. And that's, I don't want to head in that direction, And
what about the proprietary blends, Mark? Take us through the thought process there. Were you worried that people were going to say, he's not full disclosure, or you wanted to protect your blend?
Yeah, more protecting the blend more than anything else.
Because I know that
it wasn't even on purpose at the start. It was kind of like we just kind of made the label, and it was kind of, I think either you or someone else said something after, but it's really never come up. It's never been a problem. No one's ever said anything about it. I think, as you said, people try it and it's just like, okay, I don't care. This is amazing stuff,
Yeah. And I find it interesting that also at a time when there was people using botanical compounds, but it was more common to use amino acids at the time. You went right hard down the botanical compound path. That's something that interests me as well. It's I guess it's a path that a lot of us weren't taking at the time when you did that. But it's a lot more expensive to make a product that way, right? Amino acids tend to be cheaper.
Yeah, definitely. But it was never about the price. Like even the thoughts of bringing out when I was bodybuilding, I wasn't using protein powder off the shelf. I was using like the hydrolyzed protein that was a 40%, like this sort of stuff that's so expensive. So if I was going to bring out a whey protein, it would be that, bucket that's $140 on the shelf. So it was like, the first and foremost, I don't want to have all these cheap, dodgy looking products, ingredients in a product. I want to have the best quality ones on the market. So it actually does what it's meant to do. Not just chasing after that quick money.
Yeah, well, I thought that I was going to summon a demon when I first read out the ingredients list.
What did you say? It was like Harry Potter or something like that, man.
Yeah, Harry Potter spell.
Yeah, cool.
I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought that all the furniture was going to start floating around the room.
It's fun though. It's cool. Was that because of your? You said before you're interested in talking with naturopaths earlier in your introduction to supplements, Mark. Was that the sort of where you got some of the influence towards the formula from, when you the sort of Ayurvedic sort of guys?
Originally you start talking to them and then you start studying it yourself, obviously.
Yeah.
So you go through all that, and then over the years, even bodybuilding, you try and keep up to date as much as you can. And then you just go into an experiment. And then I kind of had an idea for at least one of the ingredients. And then it was like, okay, let's try and, how it goes. Let's put a little bit, let's take it out. That's too much. Stuff like that. And eventually, until it's perfected, And again, Renee didn't really understand this, but it had to be perfect or it was never going to be released.
Well, that's something that me and Will, as formulators, have definitely, really suffered over time and time again when formulating a product. I know, like for me, my product Cortisol took me 12 months to get right because essentially, I was trying to get a very, very specific result from it. And I just didn't want it out there if I wasn't achieving that. Like I know there's certain compounds even that, like, let's take ashwagandha, for example. We know that it lowers cortisol, right? But it's a stimulant as well. So if we push it too hard, then it can actually have the opposite of effect of what we're generally trying to do with it. And there's a lot of compounds like that where it's just like find the perfect amount, find the perfect synergy. I don't know if your place looks anything like mine, Mark, but my formulating cupboard, I've got like potions and little 100-gram sachets of different plant extracts, and you open the thing up and it stinks like a weed bed. But I just mess around with these things until I can get it right.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And then it's also, on top of that, it's frustrating because once that's mixed up, then you have to wait for the graphic designer to kind of have all your labels ready, and then you have to get them all printed and stuff like that. And all you want to do is release it. Another side story too, after the 18 months when it was ready, at that particular point, it was on a zero budget. So I'd been helping out the laboratory with another company trying to formulate a tattoo balm. So they it was that morning that I was heading out, the label company, because I couldn't afford the labels, you had to buy like 1,000, 2,000 at a time. They'd sent me 10 samples to have a look at, which were just beautiful. They blew my mind. So it made it kind of real. So I went to the lab, and because I'd been working so hard on this other formula for this other company, they gifted me 10 tubs. So it was like, okay, I've got 10 stickers and 10 tubs. On the way home, I made a wrong turn. I ended up at Muscle City, which I just finished painting like a couple of months before. So I said, I'll do a couple of Insta stories. And I walked in, and the owner, Derek, he said, how's the sleep formula going? I'm like, bro, it's ready. Like, I'm all excited. He said, I want 10 tubs now. So that's how it happened. It was like, what's happening right now? So then obviously you use that money and you buy, 15 tubs, and then you get some more stickers, and then use that, you buy 20 tubs, and that's how it grew from that. So it's kind of like, it was a good little story.
Well, I was very impressed to see when you got Nutrition Warehouse. It took me probably 4 years to get stocked by Nutrition Warehouse with Growth Labs. So you kind of came out of the gates and got Nutrition Warehouse, and I was like, oh, hang on a minute. I've been doing this since 2015, and I'm still not a Nutrition Warehouse. What's going on here?
I've heard that. I've heard that from a few companies that they're asking for advice, and I don't know. I think I pretty much hit up every single Nutrition Warehouse employee on Instagram in the whole industry. Like, I think that I found 100, 200 different employees that work there, and sent them all sent every one of them samples. So, hey, try this. So obviously they all know about it. Okay. And I'm like, man, if you feel good, message head office, tell them about this product. You know what I mean? So by the time that was all done and I got around to sending Nutrition Warehouse a bottle, and it wasn't just a bottle, it was a full military briefcase with all the, like, it was state of the art. Like, it was very impressive. I was actually really impressed. So that by the time I sent them this massive military briefcase with all the fittings, and it was all custom cut with foam and stuff with all the products and the samples in it, head office already knew what it was, and I think some of the people in head office had already tried the samples as well. So they already know what it is. I'd already been stalking Grant nonstop. So it wasn't like this is a new product. It was like, we know what this product is. We've already heard about this product. And I don't know what happened after that, if they tried it or not, but I got an email a couple of days later going, yeah, they're cool, let's do it. So,
I think that's a lot of our listeners are business owners. They own supplement stores. They're people in this industry, and a lot of them are wanting to do startup projects, and probably would love to hear from this sort of area. And I think there's always a few common themes with the grassroots starts with these, where it's not always that complex with the with the strategies to it. Like you said, it's like common sense work done repetitively all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Grow a brand, like you go, oh, well, I want a company to know about it. Well, actual people work at this company. Let's find them. Oh, okay. What do they think? They all want to sleep. Let's
exactly right.
Some samples, and then they've got 200 odd staff, and you just eventually you go to each store, and but it's funny. It's like, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It can be but it's effective, right? Like we're in a relationship based And a lot of businesses are relationship based. I think that's very, very common theme. So I think that's probably very valuable for our listeners to hear, that when you're saying that's how you approach probably the biggest company in the entire industry, and just did it with a very simple, very, very common sense grassroots approach. It still works regardless of how big they are.
They've been great too. I did have that reputation from back in the day of not selling shit too, like having that everyone kind of already knew who I was, like in the industry. So that definitely made a difference. But also I took that kind of, I call it stalking, because there's a really fine line between kind of advertising yourself and being arrested. Like, it's so fine. I took it from when I first started painting. I did realize the extent the popularity gyms would get if I managed to somehow bring the athletes out to sign the murals. So I remember I was painting a Derrimut a long time ago, and I said to the owner, because I knew Dana Lynn Bailey was coming out in a few weeks, so to Melbourne, and I said, I'm going to paint Dana and I'm going to bring her out and she's going to sign this mural in 2 weeks. And he's like, do you know her? I'm like, dude, I got no idea, but I'm going to find her. So it took me about 2 weeks to do this one painting, and every single day I sent about 200 or 300 emails out and instant messages, Facebook messages to Rob, to Dana, every single member of their family, extended family. Like, I'm talking children, grandchildren, friends. Everyone was tagged in, all their kids, like not their kids, their family's kids. Anyone that had access to Dana and Rob. This is probably going to get me arrested, but basically, it was just nonstop. Like, everyone that had sponsored either one of them, I contacted every single CEO, and eventually I didn't know that it was being effective at the time. Like, I was kind of doubting myself that it was ever going to happen. And then I remember that I don't think it was called the Arnold. I think it was Filex back then. But I was painting Flex Lewis live at the expo, and I had all scouts around me telling me where Dana and Rob were. So if they'd ever leave the booth, I would accidentally walk past them at a particular point, and I'd say, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" And I went to Rob and I went, "Oh, hey, Rob." Oh, because they've got like a 3 or 4 hour line to try and get autographs. So I had, because I know so many people in the industry, as we all do, I had 20 or 30 people every hour showing them this mural of Dana. So by the time I saw Rob and said, "Oh, hey, I'm the one that did the mural," they're like, "Man, that was you." Like, they already kind of know it's coming, right? And then I remember the bodybuilding show was on, and I heard where they were. So I kind of made it look like accidentally I was walking past them at the time. And I went, "Oh, hey guys, what are you doing?" And then I kind of arranged for them to come out. So I remember I was a distributor of gas back then. So I actually picked them up from the hotel with a truck full of gas in the back, and they were flag or fail at the time. So I picked them up, and on the drive out to Derrimut to sign this mural, Rob was telling me that all his relatives and everything were sending him photos of the mural in the progress for the past 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, I wonder how that happens, man. That's pretty cool. So,
that's great. But it is, isn't it? It's like, I think some people, when they go and do, and you know, there's something to be said for the amount of work that goes into that stalk that you're talking about, though. You know, like, it's not easy, and it takes that dripping tap approach sometimes to get some of these things done. You know, like, it's not just, oh, well, he sent out 200 emails and then struck it gold. It's like, it's what I call hitting the pavement. And, you know, Will, you do it really well as well. When Will was starting his company, I've always said this to Will, I've been amazed that he started his company with no digital marketing at all. And literally just went store to store. He started hitting the road in his car and driving from store to store and meeting owners. And I'm like, man, like, you really are the definition of hitting the pavement. You just got out there and got it done. And that's sometimes what it takes. Hey, just give it a crack. You're going to get shut down. You're going to get turned down. Someone's going to laugh in your face. Someone's going to say you'll never make it happen. But you just really got to be, I guess, tenacious to get these things done. That's probably a good segue into a little bit about your company, Will. And it's something I've wanted to do a little bit is kind of with some of these podcasts, you know, pick each other's brains a little bit on some of this stuff too, because I've always been interested in the story behind Primabolics. Are there any kind of parallels there between Axe Labs and Primabolics?
Oh, massively, mate. Like, exactly from the start. So when you're saying, you know, you'd sell 10 odd tubs and you'd use that to buy your 13, 15 tubs, whatever, and go through from there. Exactly the same. Like, literally, to the point where I had tubs that I hand wrote just pre-workout on them and would sell them to friends. And I think the first time I did it, I literally got half a dozen or so made up from just a local Supp store who blended them in the blended them for me, did a little bit of contract gigs, and then from there I thought, oh cool, I'll buy 20 then, and literally was just with whatever I had in savings sitting around, and friends exactly the same though, and same thing in that period. There wasn't so much social media, wasn't such a big thing. Instagram wasn't really big at all in 2015ish, and so you just did it. You had to do it. Same thing. I literally posted out sachets to people. Like you literally put it in a Ziploc bag, written on it in texter, and put it in an envelope with a stamp on it. And put it.
So you're probably lucky too, though, Mark, that you're an artist. So you were able to look at your first labels and know whether they looked good or not. If you look at my first labels, or I've seen some of Will's first labels, before we have the money to pay a designer or an artist to do them, oh man, we did some crap looking products.
I've got it somewhere. Actually, I've got where's the even?
I know the Ziploc bag though. Wow, like I've written on so many Ziploc bags. Even those Coles ones are so cheap. And Renee just tells me, man, they're so unprofessional, because she owns a sticker company. So she's like, they're so unprofessional. They're so unprofessional. It's like,
that's how I sold it. Probably the first 20 or so I got sold like that. Then the next few, I thought I was really cool. I actually got a label.
Oh, you got on Microsoft Word, mate. Woo.
Yeah, that was. I thought I was really killing it then. And then that's how it went through about 5 rebrands before it got to current.
So for those of you who are listening to our podcast on Spotify or iTunes and haven't seen the visuals, jump over to our YouTube channel and have a look at that. But basically, what we're seeing is pretty much what you would present it as a Year 6 title page, wrapped around a jar.
on a Commodore 64.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm presenting it to an actual artist right now, so it's quite fantastic.
I'm not a graphic designer though. I'm lucky that I've been really close with Corey from FD Designs.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously when I was organizing all those Dana murals and stuff in future, I'd get him to come out and take photos. So he's really good at label designs as well.
That was a very famous mural, I think. Look, that was one of the first ones that I ever saw pop up, and really got notoriety. People noticed that. In particular, that era, Dana was huge. Like really big marketplace.
It was groundbreaking for myself, because I realized what could be done. And as I said, I didn't know it was all working for those 2 weeks until that kind of actually happened. And that's when you realize, hey, all this kind of, this effortless non-stop work was kind of paying off. And Dana and Rob and I have been really, really close ever since. I'm going to be painting her in a couple of weeks again, and we've been talking pretty much a lot about it, But I've gotten really close with most of the guys. Like I'm painting Kai at the moment, and I'm painting him as I've got him on speakerphone. And you kind of you pinch yourself sometimes, going, this isn't real life. What the fuck? You know what I mean?
I remember that you came down to Wollongong and you painted a mural in Aventus Gym.
Yeah,
love that place. You did Arnold and Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
And this mural actually allowed the gym owner to use the mural to contact The Rock, because Dwayne Johnson was a hero of his, and it's someone that had actually inspired Dan to do the gym in the first place.
Yeah.
It actually allowed Dan to end up meeting with Dwayne Johnson when he came to the Gold Coast, just through this, mural was the common connector. So it's done some of these artworks have done some pretty awesome things.
So that they shut off, they wouldn't allow casuals when The Rock was training in there. So obviously, I was hitting up John Davey pretty much every day saying, hey, this guy's coming up, let him in. And all the security and all the staff. And eventually they let Daniel in. It was kind of to see those photos was inspirational. Like the fact that, and he'd gone up there on his own whim. He'd made, I'm just going to take
no promises of meeting him.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So it doesn't hurt. It doesn't take more than 5 seconds for me to message a few people to say, hey, let him in. It might not work, but it's not, doesn't take me much. And look at the end result. Look what he got out of it.
It's a life-changing thing, isn't it? I find and you find that's a commonality across what we do with supplements too. It's why I love Supps, is you get such a, like when you give someone a good night's sleep, or help them lower cortisol and reduce some of that horrible stress they've had through, or just help, the quality of life that comes back and the feedback you get, it generally takes all the commercial element out of it. Like it's and you'll see that with the people who are in it for the right reason. That it's you'll have an hour podcast with them, and not once is a commercial value ever. No one's ever talked about money yet. No one's ever mentioned profit or margins or cogs or anything like that. And good, so it shouldn't. That cheapens the romance of it, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and as Stu said before, like I have the art there. The art's kind of keeping me going. And a few other things. So the supplement was never about, and thank goodness for that, but it was never money. So it did allow me to, as much as you can say I want to help people, if you can't feed your kids, it's hard just to help people,
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like I'm in a lucky position where I didn't really have to worry about that too much.
Yeah, and so I think that we've probably ran into that a few times as well, Will, where we've had products that we were desperate to release, and saw like a huge potential for something, and just literally realize that there's just not going to be the payoff to release this in the market, and so had to turn our back on the idea. I know that I've been through it a few times, and I can think of a couple of products that you were potentially going to be releasing that decided against in the end. And it's just, it'd be so nice if you could just do this stuff without having to worry about profits at all.
Oh, exactly. No, it's such big layout, unfortunately, isn't it? The minimum orders, but I'm doing that right now. We're with the TGA updates that have come out. We're trying to go through the compliance work and reformulate, but I'm trying to, some formulas that I made years ago. I'm giving it a facelift, and you go through and you get to a certain point where you're like, this is what I want to release. And then there's the practical side of you that goes, I've got to freight this. I've got to accept some samples out of this as well. I've got to, actually get this to a wholesaler who then wants to make their margin. And when you look at the actual real costs versus what you'd like to put to the market, it does make it hard. I've done it 9 times out of 10. I'll just do it anyway and just accept that we run it at a higher. We just run a lower margin than most other operators, but that's cool because you're happy to have what you want on the tub, right?
Well, that's probably why you've done so well in the market, though, as well, Will. Right? Is because you refuse to compromise on quality, even if it meant compromising on some money in your back pocket.
Because it's just like, what's the point? Because there's no longevity. I find it. We've all seen it. Mark, you've been around a very long time as well in this game, and we've all seen the products that are just pixie dust that come and go, and the brand name or the marketing might get it into someone's hands. And I think this is a message that's relatable to most businesses in any market. A crap product that's overly marketed or what have you, or a new jingly product might come into the market, and it might be, it might get the one-off purchase from a customer. But if they're not having that, if they're not if it's not improving their life somehow, if it's not helping them somehow, that's where your brand stops. Like with launching with it, like say a large retailer like NW with you, Mark, for example, you could have put out your pixie dust formula and had it just released it early in beta samples and it not be quite as good, but that would have been as far as you've gotten. You would have sold it. Everyone would have bought a tub, but they wouldn't buy a second. And that longevity you spoke on will be gone. So if you want to be able to do this as to feed the family for a long time, if I want to make sure my daughter's comfy for a long time, I need to make sure that everything's good enough that it'll actually repeat custom.
Oh no, 100%. And that's what I found pretty quick is the people that were buying the tubs a month or two later, even all the customers from around the world, they're reordering, which is kind of like you don't know if that's going to happen. So when it does start happening, it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool.
Well, I'm still getting a lot of the early customers purchasing Dream direct from my website. Like the amount of Dream that I send out to Melbourne is far beyond where I send it anywhere else. I get orders to Melbourne every single week. I get Dream Melbourne, some suburb of somewhere around Melbourne. So it's like a lot of those original customers are still purchasing direct from my website, which is fantastic. I know I was one of the early retailers of it.
You're one of the first, if not the first. Like probably the second.
Yeah.
Actually, I probably told you there's heaps of supplement stores doing it. You might as well jump on board. I'm pretty sure you were the first.
We all do that. Don't worry.
I'm pretty sure you were the. Yeah. I know. I'd heard you weren't the first person to say this is too expensive. I'm not going to sell a sleep. No one's going to buy a sleep formula for this much money. Yeah. You were like the 10th person to say that. And I was like, just take it.
That's when he sent me the samples down and got me.
That's really good, actually, mate. That's a really valuable one. Sorry to interject, but I think when you said that, no one will buy it until they try it, right? Like, I think we set our own mind, like, and this will be again a common across most industries. I think we set our own little constraints in our mind of like, the end consumer might have a price point in their mind to deliver to get X service. They might go, I want a fat burner. A fat burner is worth this much. But if you can transcend that and actually help them and give them that, give them an experience like that's above what they would get from that similar price product, they will, because it's the beautiful thing about supplements is it's all experience based. It's all felt. It's very personal. It's not like they take it and they actually feel better or have more energy, more focus, whatever it might be. It's not like other, and that dictates the price. I find I try and formulate with that end game. Just like you said, I try and go, well, when someone has this and they do this for a few weeks and they have great REM for a few weeks, so their metabolism actually starts functioning, or you lower their cortisol or whatever.
Yeah. That's funny that you say that, Will, because when Mark was pretty persistent with me as well, messaging me every sort of maybe 2 or 3 times a week before I decided to stock it. And I remember he messaged me and he said, have you tried the samples I sent you? And at first I lied. I hadn't tried them. And I said, yeah, mate, I've tried them. Look, yeah, it's pretty good. It seems all right, but still not interested. And he was like, yeah, okay, no worries. Fair enough. Fair call. Anyways, fast forward about a week. And I thought I was struggling to sleep one night, tossing and turning. Stuff it. I'm going to give this stuff a go. That Mark sent me, and we'll see what it's all about, And keeping in mind, I've been selling supplements since 2009, so I've had your Resurrect PMs, I've had your GH
Blast,
Blast, I've had them all. I've taken them all over the years, and I thought it's going to be no different to any of them, but I'll give it a go. Take this thing, and I knew it would take a little bit to kick in, so I thought I'll just sit and watch a bit of TV with me blue light glasses on for a little bit. Sitting there, and about 15, 20 minutes after taking it, I just remember like all my muscles started to feel like warm jelly. I was like, oh, what's going on here? And I just sort of like sunk into the lounge like, oh, something's happening here. I'm like, yeah, it's time to go back to bed. Lay down on the pillow, lights out, slept the whole night, woke up in the morning, and for the first time in probably 12 months, I woke up and got up on my first alarm. I was awake, alert, alive, ready to go. I didn't feel groggy. There was no sedative hangover. And that was when I kind of realized, hey, we're missing something in sleep supplements at the moment. And it changed my whole way of looking at sleep supplements and choosing different sleep supplements. And that's when I went, you know what? It's dearer than what I'd like to spend, but I have to have this. I have to stock it because I want to help my customers. And that was it. From then on, it was on my website, and I was ranking first for it.
Yeah, I know, definitely were. But as a human, and with your moral values in the right spot, you're never ever going to get sick of hearing stuff like that. And that is the entire reason that people should be getting into the industry in the first place. And that feedback should be the reason you're driving to keep pushing and getting, bringing out new products and stuff like that.
It really to me was like, and I'm not sure if I coined the term that it was a revolution. But it was in my first video. I said, this is honestly a revolution in sleep supplements. It's a total game changer. And then the revolution in sleep supplements has kind of almost been an advertising theme since then. So I'm not sure if I'm going to take claim to that one or not.
Yeah,
but,
I shared your video, and I think it got like 10,000 views, and I only had a couple of hundred followers at the time. So it did really well. No, it was very.
Do you mind if we geek out on that formula a little bit? Because I like to like with these things, I always like picking the brain of formulators when we're fortunate enough to have them, on our show.
He's not going to give away the secret recipe, though, Will, right? It's a proprietary blend. You are aware of that, are you not?
Valium. Just a piece of Valium.
Just heaps of value. I'd love to see what were your main pathways you looked at? Because where I look at these days when I'm trying to prioritize sleep, right, I tend to think most people by default now are stressed. I think most of my life's work now is going to be focused towards educating people in the adrenal space and on the effects of cortisol. And so I think by default, most people are stressed. So I'm going to say when I'm looking at sleep quality, I go down the cortisol angle. A lot of people have a lot of screen time. So I guess you can look at the whole serotonin, the melatonin part. But when you were putting down pen to paper on this thing and you were going, all right, how am I going to get someone, how am I going to optimize their REM? How am I going to get them from a light to a deep cycle? What were you looking at? What pathways? What was your main concerns?
Hmm. I think it
See, I
changes
think
every 5 minutes, but briefly it's more to somehow switch the brain off at night, to stop that. So many people are sitting there at night and their brains are going
ruminating.
at 300k an hour. So
Mm.
if you can somehow switch that off and just calm them and put them in a sense of relaxation, then the following ingredients can take over.
Yeah. So I think that probably the way you formulate is similar to how I formulate in my secondary process. So normally first I do what Will's talking about, whereas I try and look at look at what's happening on a cellular level. I try and look at the biochemistry, but then I really have to change tact and go down the felt pathway. What is it actually doing? And I think that's probably, by the sounds of things, the kind of formulator that you are, Mark, is you do a series of trial and error, I guess, where you're just taking it and seeing, do I sleep better? What's my sleep tracker saying? Am I getting a better REM sleep, rather than so much going down the pathway of, all right, is this inclusion going to increase my production of GABA? Is this inclusion going to reduce my cortisol production? Is this inclusion going to have an impact on my serotonin and dopamine production? It's more just, let's include a few things and let's see how it feels.
Yeah. I mean, and you brought up GH Blast a while ago. I remember trying that for the first time and being blown away when it first came out.
Yeah.
But as well as that, is that stuff, I guess we can talk about it now because it's not really legal in the country anymore, but that caused so many car accidents because you were out of it for like, I remember giving it to my dad and 2 days later, he was still drowsy. Had the best sleep of his life. But so I remember thinking at the time, even if that was still legal, I wouldn't put that in my product.
Yeah, it's like, I call it the sedative hangover, right? So it feels the way that you would after you would come out of surgery,
Yeah,
where you're still a
yeah.
little bit tranquilized.
And I think
and that's what.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think a lot of things that they've unfortunately banned since, or are looking at, things like your phenibut's, your valerian roots, your those guys that are amazing at helping you get to sleep, unfortunately aren't amazing at helping you get awake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which again was one of the main ingredients. I wanted people to wake up and they were like, okay, let's go. You know what I mean? Which is the whole point of a proper sleep.
Well, I think that a key difference that I've noticed with your adrenal product is that its versatility is you can use yours through the day and it won't put you to sleep. And I think that's there's a difference there, whereas Dream for me is more a specific sleep supplement. It's not something that you're going to take after your lunch break before you have to deliver a business meeting. But if you want to get a phenomenal sleep, that's the product to take. Whereas, with your Primabolics product, it's something that you could take before a business meeting, and it would just calm your nerves. And you could go out there and you could still be punchy, punctual, and deliver. However, if you're having it before bed, you go back and you have a look at how much REM sleep you are getting, and look at your sleep phases. You're going to have a fantastic quality of sleep as well.
It's an interesting one. And by the same, when you said, Mark, I think a lot of people, their big problem is switching off. They really struggle to. They're sitting there, their head's still racing, and that's a primary symptom picture behind elevated cortisol. It's having that busy mind, being physically drained, but mentally just go, and you can't switch it off. And people really struggle to dull that background noise. They'll be absolutely just physically just exhausted. Everyone's been that when they've been overtired. You'll be at that stage where you're just over the top exhausted. You've been run flat. You get to bed and you have the worst sleep ever, and you're like, how come? And then that, so it's really interesting when I because I was originally going to make a standalone sleep one, but I sort of wanted to have something people could use throughout the day too, because a lot of people struggle with anxiety. But that took a lot of really careful thinking with the botanicals too, because as you would have found with your ingredients, Mark, some of them have a double-edged sword. L-theanine can be calmative at a low dose, or L-theanine can be stimulatory at a high dose, or you play like passion flower extract is. I ended up swapping that out with Montgomery tart cherry because that had naturally occurring melatonin, for example, which is a really cool feature. But then you can't use it throughout the day, so you've got to be really. I think in most business areas, it's probably the same with your product. You've got to figure out what you want to go for and double down on that really hard. And I think you've done that in that you're not an adrenal sup who also is great at sleep. It's 100%. This is what I do. That's all I'm doing. I'm not pretending to be multifaceted. It's just This is my business model. This is what I make. This is what it
Yeah.
does. Yeah, and hats off to you, because it's some you probably could have diversified alternatively, but I think there's a lot to be said for really nailing your niche and knowing where you sit in a space.
It's probably interesting
knowing
as
that
well.
niche. You
Go for it, Mark.
I say knowing that niche isn't the largest niche in the industry too. You know,
Yeah, people are spending their money on fat burners and pre-workouts. Let's face it.
Exactly. Yeah, which you got to make that. You got to make that decision at the start, as I said, that these people are not my customers.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting what you said there, Will, about Mark's product being really a master of sleep instead of trying to be a jack of all trades. And I guess I take the other edge of the sword with Cortisol, where I tell people this is not a sleep supplement. Although, it can assist with sleep, I haven't designed it for that. Basically, I designed it for myself. Really, originally, I never actually intended to release Cortisol as a product. I was using, a pharmaceutical product throughout the day to just allow me to function without the level of anxiety that I, that I would generally have. And I wanted something that I could take that could help me. And, potentially for me personally, replace that pharmaceutical. But it wasn't never intended as a sleep product, and I still don't market it as a sleep product today. So I probably take the other track where I think you lie somewhere in the middle. So it's, it really is interesting what goes through different formulators' heads. And I guess, what space you want to take up in the market. And it's tricky to decide what that's going to be.
It is the biggest space though, man. Like, you're dead right. It is the biggest niche market no one talks about, because in the fitness industry, everyone is, they're all like burning the candle at every conceivable end and the middle. Like, everyone is really trying, they're training early mornings, late nights, lots of stimulants in a lot of their pre-workouts, fat burners. On top of that, they're usually an A-type personality. So they're go-getters, they're working long hours, or they're trying with their businesses. Like, it's so common. I see so many people hit burnout multiple times in the fitness industry. And if you can really prolong that and give them a very powerful tool to drop the hammer on that sympathetic drive, if you can give someone, the REM back. So it's an interesting concept you started there. But so where do you see, I guess, the nice complementary nature now between a supplement brand and also doing the artistic pursuits as well? Where do you see yourself in the foreseeable future, focusing
what's
more
next?
on that?
What's next for Mark, Meataxe, Taylor, and Axe Labs?
The artwork's kind of going crazy at the moment. I don't know. Damn,
a lot of people might not know this, but Axe Labs is not just Dream, although that's, I guess, the champion product of the line.
Oh yeah, that was always
you've got a protein, it's a plant isolate, I believe, and you've also got a pre-workout.
Yeah, I did. I ended up releasing a pre-workout, but again, it couldn't be high stim. It needed to be a long-acting, clean energy with no crash. Definitely no crash, because I'll use Mesomorph as an example, but I remember training and having the best session of my life and then wanting to slip my wrist on the way home.
Yeah, it is genuine.
It's like, what are they putting in this shit? Like, you can't make your customers want to kill themselves because of this crash. So, and again, it's called Empower, but that it does concentrate on the focus, you know what I mean? To give you that limitless feeling, if we're allowed to use that word, limitless.
Was that nootropic focus? Obviously, sleep's got this whole like neurotransmitter cascade to it to get the right balance in sleep. You got serotonin being converted to melatonin. From there, you've got cortisol having to lower, GABA has to rise. You've got all this going on. So I'd imagine when you're formulating that, you would have to have had a pretty thorough understanding of nootropics. Was that what, when you were talking about your pre-workout there, was that sort of the backbone behind that guy? Have sort of lower to moderate stim and a heap of nootropics to make people really dialed in? Or
I think I did overthink that one, and I was going to include a lot more nootropics in it. But again, with all the trial and error, to be brutally honest, I think a lot of the nootropics are just kind of there because they look really good on the label, not actually doing something in real life. Where there's some really, really good ingredients out there where the tiniest minute will help with that focus. And that, a lot of people are using it for pre-workout, but a lot of business people are using it, mixing it with their morning coffee because it's getting them through the day, and they're getting heaps more focused with their day. They can last the whole day. But yeah, it does they all go together. But yeah, there's a lot of ingredients that definitely just look good on the label, but in reality, they're really not doing that much.
Yeah, and
is there any more products that you're working on at the moment, Mark?
Yes.
Are you prepared? Are you prepared to give the Wot Supp podcast anything at all about it?
I'll be finishing like high green mural in about 3 weeks.
Yep.
That's pretty much all I'm going to give.
And nothing on Axe Labs.
Not as yet. I haven't finished formulating this last one, although it's very close. But I do want to try and concentrate on something that I was taking back in the day in terms of muscle building and recovery. But I actually thought it was illegal, but it turns out that it wasn't illegal. So yeah, that's pretty much all I'm going to say.
Super interesting.
All right. Well, we'll have to. Well, when you're going to make the drop on it, you make sure you let us know, and we'll get you in for a sneaky. You heard it here first.
Definitely. I got to stick with my original store.
Yeah. Mark, do you have any favorite products that currently exist on the market that aren't your own at the moment?
Because we like to ask a lot of guests, this is a bit of on the way out the door. We like to ask as a nice little wrap up. What are your favorite supplements? Your must haves, your everyday things that you.
I can't live without all the probiotic stuff and Cortisol. I love that stuff, man.
Yeah. It is
I don't know if he's just saying that or not, or if he really does.
The probiotic stuff's interesting. That's a good one. Not many people look at the gut health angle first. A lot of people will say a good adrenal supplement, hence Cortisol, and they'll look at things like.
I think I stuffed that up. What's the name of your company again?
My company?
No.
Will's
Probiotics. No,
I meant to say that, not probiotics. I meant to say that.
No one pronounces it well. Don't worry. I don't most days.
Yeah. A lot of people do take Dream and Cortisol together, though.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of customers using both. Using their Dream for their sleep and then using their Cortisol in the daytime. So they're definitely very synergistically used together in a holistic approach.
Well, I can't wait to see this mural came, mate. This is phenomenal. Look, we really appreciate having so much of your time, given you've got probably a busy schedule painting with that, because you don't just do small artworks. We're not doing a canvas. We're talking 20-foot walls. So you've got a lot of real estate.
The current mural I'm on, I've been doing it for 4 months, 7 days a week, and I've just hit halfway.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you enjoy doing the murals, Mark? Do you actually like it, or has it gotten to a point where it's a job now?
Oh, there's a lot of tears, lots of crying.
Yeah.
Because you can't see what it looks like up close. It's all you can see is billions and billions of dots.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen them up close. Like you go right up to one of them and it's speckles, right? It's speckles of paint. And, it's not until you walk back from it that you go, whoa, that looks bloody awesome.
So it's when you get a photo, if you enlarge it so much that you just see all the pixels.
Yeah.
I'm painting the pixels. So up close, all I can see is pixels. So the whole entire time you're doubting yourself. It's like, I fucked it. And you think Kai Green's nose is going to be over here. And that there's millions of people that are going to see Kai Green's nose and they're going to call you on Kai Green's nose. So it's like, I fucked it. And I'm too scared to get down and have a look because I'm thinking, okay, this is the one where everyone's going to find out I'm faking it. This is the one that I'm going to stuff up. Everyone's going to realize, I wonder if I can get a 9-to-5 job. How have I managed to get this far? Every single job. There's been jobs where I've gotten down and it's taken me 2 hours to even 2 to 3 hours to get the courage to turn around and look at what I've done because I'm too scared.
Wow. It's crazy to think you have to paint in micro detail to see macro. These are big scale things. Like I
don't know how he does it. I because I'm a budding artist myself. You can see those works behind me.
I was going to ask about them. Yeah.
They're all done by me. That's actually just me scribbling. I don't actually draw them. It's just scribbled with it. They're all done with a felt tip pen.
Oh, awesome.
But scale, I don't know how you do the scale. Like for me, if I do anything bigger than about that size, I start to wreck my scale. I can't draw big.
It's just a big jigsaw puzzle. It's just a matter of getting all the jigsaw puzzles and putting them in the right spot. And again, you do doubt yourself because you get down and you're always getting down, correcting. That's got to move over. That's got to move over. So it's constantly doing the cardio and getting up and down constantly. And then the next level is you try to create emotion. You need people to feel the artwork. So anyone can draw, but to create that emotion, that's where the secret is. Without the emotion, you're just a sign writer. You're not really doing much. So you want people to come in and they feel the artwork before they even see it. So that's the end goal. But the only problem with that is when you're painting emotion, it sucks your own emotion out. So the end of each day, you're so physically and emotionally drained
You need a
There's
good
nothing
scoop
left.
of dream to get some sleep after that.
Sure.
Well, on that note, Mike, we might say goodbye. I know that Will, you've got places to be. Mark, I'm sure you've got some spray cans you got to get shaken up.
I can hear my kids upstairs. They just got home from school.
Thanks so much for appearing on the show there, Mark. Thanks, Will, for taking some time out of what I know is a very busy time for you at the moment.
Anyone formulating right now, I think, is having an equally busy time with the TGA, completely flipping us on our heads, but it's okay. We're getting through it. So, but I really appreciate your time there, Mark. It's a really unique spanning both. You know, being a supplement formulator, also an artist in this space as well, and being around a lot of people in the industry. You know, it's quite a remarkable body of work that you're putting up in these gyms. It's incredible. So thank you very much for giving us over an hour of your time.
Yeah,
Thanks
and just
so
on
much,
one more note for the listeners, for anyone who listens in, please make sure you subscribe to our channels, guys. Whether you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, YouTube
channel.
leave us a review and leave us a 5-star rating as well. Thanks for that, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.